Hi, it's Chris Grimm, and it is Deep Work Fast, and it's March. Every Tuesday, if you don't know, I do this live, and then of course we repost this on our YouTube channel. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook. 20 minutes or less. I bring you tools, ideas, concepts, books, articles, blogs, all kinds of material so that you can be your best in all the roles that you play at work and at home. Parent, partner, boss, coworker, employee, whatever you do, I want you to be great at it and I want you to feel good about it. Today I am kicking off what we are going to do for 3 weeks. So it's a series and it is based on the blog that we dropped yesterday. I wrote it based on some things that are happening in coaching a lot. And I have noticed on teams and in individuals that I coach, both at work and outside of work, that most people don't learn in their home or in the workplace. It's kind of interesting how to really resolve conflicts or things that maybe never turn into a conflict, but maybe disagreements you have, or your team decides to make a decision and you don't fully disagree with it. So people don't often have the tools to actually resolve it all. And the name of our blog is A Life Free of Baggage and Old Resentments. Heather has it there. Thank you. In the chat, you can grab that later. But what I thought today, and the reason I split this into 3 parts, is because once I started really peeling it back and working on it with coaching clients, I realized this is a topic that is critically important because in our homes, of course, in our relationships, the residue or old baggage that tends to come with us, it impacts the current relationship and, of course, the future of that relationship. And that can be in extreme bad ways. If we clear it up and we learn some tools and have agreements in our families to do this better, it actually creates a lighter, more healthy, peaceful, who doesn't want that, life for everybody. And then, of course, at work, what I see, which is really common because we do so much corporate work, is that when I have a team or leaders and their teams who know how to not only resolve conflict, but like I said, clean up the residue from whatever that is. Because if you think about it, conflict usually isn't like one moment in time. We might experience it that way because that might be when people confront each other or when the tension is in the room between you and a person or a whole group of people, or we get conflicting data or somebody misses a deadline, right? There's a whole bunch of ways that situations happen that we call uncomfortable or, conflict. But all the things that happen before, during, and sometimes after the interactions where there's even slight disagreement over real factual data or just hurt feelings, like I said, resentment, bitterness, annoyance. If we feel like, we constantly kind of lose those battles, it creates what I call residue, right? It is left in the relationship and it might be unsaid, like we might just get over it. And I want to talk about that too, because most people can't actually just get over anything. So it's kind of, what I want to say, it's flawed thinking, but it's bad advice to just say to people, forgive and forget, get over it, whatever words you might be using so that you can push people to move on before they're ready, or push yourself to move on before you're ready. So I want to, today, talk about the signs that there are actual and maybe real residue and resentments that are left over from those old situations, and they might be impacting what you're doing. And I want to make it clear that these signs are not always just about one relationship or one situation, right? Some of us carry baggage for a really long time, like for years, some for decades. I know people who hold grudges and will tell me stories about things that happened 10, 20 years ago, right? And I know for many people, when I tell those stories, they go, no way. And I'm like, yes, that is how some people think and function. And there are reasons for that. Now, I don't know what my dog's doing today, but she's making a cameo appearance and she's, come over here, please. Thank you. Okay, so let's first just talk about the signs that this could be in existence for you or other people. And I want to mention, I put a link, and Heather's going to put a link. Thank you. I think she already did, to a book. Or Heather, if you could just add that to the chat. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. I've mentioned it before, and I recommend this to people all the time. Most people don't realize that anytime our body experiences intense emotion, right? So we have a situation, we have a thought, we have emotions, and maybe we get triggered by those. That imprint is in our body. And so even though we might express those intense emotions, they don't just go away. There tends to be, like I call it, residue that is left. And our body, if we don't express those emotions, or if we partially express emotions, but the situation ends because maybe you are in a real conflict. So think about that, right? Like, so let's say you're having an interchange with your boss. Let's take it to work first. And that is heated and the discussion feels bad. You think you should have gotten a raise or a promotion, and your boss tells you all the reasons why that did not happen. And you don't like the way this has ended. And of course, now your boss is super uncomfortable, most likely because they had to give you extra feedback or revisit a topic that they thought was over. So now there's discomfort for both people. So there's the discomfort and the interaction that's happened. And then of course, once that's over, like the meeting's over, and you leave Zoom or you leave lunch or you leave the office space, right? Both people still have the remnants of that experience in their body. Now, I know you all know exactly what I'm talking about, because then if you think about those two people, they leave, let's say they were meeting in person, they both go get in their own car and drive away and move on to the next thing. Most likely their body is processing however they felt during that experience. And then, of course, all the thoughts that we're having about what I should have said, what I should not have said, all of those things, all of those thoughts that are keeping that situation alive most likely have triggering emotions of some sort. And so the body is processing that longer than the situation itself. And then if the thoughts you're having are regretful, for instance, like I shouldn't have said that, this really felt bad to me, like I left the unresolved, it feels unresolved, and now I'm resentful, and now I'm mad because I'm never getting a raise, and I may have hurt the relationship with my boss. You may have had those situations, right? So if you think about it, there's layers and layers of feelings in your body related to the situation and all those thoughts. And so the book, The Body Keeps the Score, talks about that. It talks about how when we express emotion, how that stays in our body or doesn't, and how to resolve that and get it out of your body. And it talks about the things that we don't express. And so the reason I'm doing this and telling you about it is because when we have baggage, when we have resentments, when we have old residue and stuff that we're sitting with and carrying around with us, most likely, even though you're busy and not thinking about the thing very often, I hope, your body still has it. And until you do some kind of work, like somatic body work or breath work or something that allows your body to release the energy of those emotions, your body will continue to absorb it and it will hold it. So if you're unfamiliar with that and you didn't know that that was happening, but you know you have it in your own body, maybe because you have stress symptoms, an ulcer in your stomach, or whatever, you are constantly feeling stressful and your neck is sore, right? Get that book. If you've never read it or you're unfamiliar, or just get the book summary, I highly recommend it. Okay, so back to this topic. I want to talk to you about the signs, and I'm going to just take those 8 things straight off the blog so you know they will be there when you click through. And I want to talk about what they look like in real life so that you can start to witness them first in yourself and secondarily in other people. So, signs that you have cleanup to do, that things are still lingering, whether you know it or not. The first thing I look for when I'm coaching people is, can you trust other people? Do you trust people? So the number one thing is either a lack of trust or a hesitance to trust other people. Now, that can look like full on distrust and paranoia, like they're out to get me, etc. And sometimes that could be true, happens. Or most commonly, what it looks like is not wanting to delegate, not wanting to let someone else send the email, go to the customer meeting alone, present to the executives, right? So think about that. All of that is a sign that something in the past is still with you. And that could have been a situation, right, where you did trust someone to do something and maybe they did a bad job. And because that is unresolved for you, you are now hesitant to relive that with other people. Now, later, we're going to talk about what to do about this, because if you have a whole bunch of that going on, well, it's going to hold you back, right? If you can't delegate to other people, if you can't trust the people in your life, that keeps you potentially back from making a great decision or making a great something, right? And I don't want you to be limited like that. And that's really what this baggage does to us. It's limiting, and it's limiting your ability to be great. Okay. Number 2 is communication breakdowns. So in coaching, I think many of you know this. Before I coach someone, we do something called 360-degree feedback. We interview a bunch of people about that person with permission, of course, and say, tell me about that person, the good stuff, the bad stuff, what could they do better, etc. And so when I hear that there are communication breakdowns all the time, some of which might feel innocuous, like they don't matter so much, like consistently getting the calendar invites wrong, even though the other people have sent you an invite and you said yes and you confirmed it 3 times. And then all of a sudden on the day of, you go, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to happen today. Or you've had multiple conversations with people and later you can't remember the commitments, or there's just a breakdown. That is a really common sign of old situations popping up, because it means that your goal isn't to be resolute. Let that sink in with you, right? So the opposite of things being unresolved is things being completely resolved to the point where you can be accountable for any situation and any information or any deadlines or any passing of information or a deliverable, right? So when there's communication breakdowns on a regular basis, you need to ask yourself, why is that? Why do things keep slipping? And why do I keep missing the communication? Or why are other people consistently not understanding what I need and want? Like, where am I not bringing things to resolution? And is it because it might cause conflict and I'm avoiding that? So you need to ask yourself those questions, but look for that sign. So the number 1 sign was hesitance or lack of trust. The second one is communication breakdown. The third one is emotional distance. So emotional distance can look like true trying to distance yourself from your own feelings or their feelings, right? Or when someone's super angry and upset, that you avoid that, right? I don't want to go there. That person's super angry. They're angry all the time. That feels bad to me. And so instead of taking it head on and asking about it and wanting to resolve what is actually happening, you keep a distance. The other part of emotional distance, specifically if your body's carrying a lot of old stuff is that your body might not allow you to stay uncomfortable for a long time. Like, it is not uncommon when I'm coaching people to learn that they tend to not respond sometimes appropriately, like their emotional intelligence doesn't feel right for the situation. They may overreact or they might seemingly under respond or underreact based on what the other people are saying and feeling about the thing. Now, often at work, that shows up in urgency or a lack of urgency or the wrong urgency. Like, why are you saying this thing is more important when everybody else is more worried about this thing over here? Right. So it's like a weird incongruence or disconnect from what the actual feeling is warranted in that situation. The next one is frequent arguments. So if you tend to have a lot of disagreements with people, like you're agitated on a fairly regular basis before anybody says or does anything, or you're projecting into the future that that's going to be a fight, and then it actually becomes a fight, right? Like, so you are anticipating it and sometimes maybe even creating it by generally going into situations even a little bit agitated. And so the other people around you are responding in kind. So you want to look at that. You want to look at how frequently you have disagreements with other people and just see if that's a part of maybe you're carrying around a whole bunch of stuff that have nothing to do with these people. I've seen in coaching, by the way, people who maybe got demoted or fired or laid off in the job before this. Sometimes in the next job, they're carrying the residue from that old situation ending badly, and they bring that energy into their new job and tend to kind of what I call self-sabotage. I've talked about this before, not on purpose, but because they're still mad about what happened in the last thing. So just watch that. So frequent arguments might be happening or just agitation. The next thing is avoidance behavior. And so this is definitely a sign that something's not cleaned up from the past, and it may be a whole bunch of things. So avoidance behavior are things, like I said a little bit earlier, that you anticipate there's going to be problems. You anticipate that there might be an argument. Maybe you know because maybe you had a bad situation with this person at work or at home. And so you tend to avoid it either with passive aggressive behavior, which is the next thing I want to talk about. So I'll explain that in a second if you don't know what it is. But other ways I want to note of avoiding situations, well, social media scrolling, eating can be an avoidance technique. Of course, drugs and alcohol. There's a whole bunch of ways we tend to avoid things. Procrastination sometimes is avoidance of what you believe is going to be a tough conversation, or a situation that's going to bring up old insecurities and feelings. I just had a leader tell me about this recently where they had a really bad situation in a sales situation, on an account management problem. What started to happen was that he and his team members started to have some avoidance behaviors when they started to see indicators or signals that with some of their other customers, it looked and felt like it was going to go the same way. And so they panicked a little bit and they started avoiding doing what they did in that one that went bad. And in some ways that actually wasn't the right way to go. So we have to be careful. We play these tricks on ourselves. And I wanted to bring this to you because I just have these conversations all the time. And it's not until an outsider comes and I kind of shine the light that people start to realize what's actually happening. And we're so busy, you can get kind of stuck in these kind of modes of operation without knowing that it's happening. So I mentioned to you that I was going to talk about passive aggressive, but I hit the 20-minute mark. It's always hard for me to stay within 20 minutes or less. So the best part is this was part one of a 3-part. So next week on Deep Work Fast, I will start back into this list. We will talk about passive aggressive behavior. We're going to talk about what it looks like at work and at home. Thank you for being with me. I am honored to be able to bring you the tools, ideas, and concepts every week. And thank you for all the feedback. And if you need a topic, you or your team members or your family members, please let me know and we'll bring you the tools that you need to be great at everything you do all the time. Okay, have a great day. Bye.